I think in some ways Gianni Infantino deserved the image of that three-quarters empty stadium, because this has been, in my opinion, simply a cash cow for FIFA. I think what this is at the moment is a tournament for tourists.
It should have been kids for £1 or adults for £5 or something like that, just to try and fill the stadium.
But the game itself, I thought, was the problem here. It did feel a little bit like a pre-season friendly.
Liam Delap, I thought, I never judge someone on their first game, and obviously it's got to be done consistently. Apart from scoring, and there's not much more he could have done. It was a brilliant cameo role. Chelsea fans will love watching him because he is all action.
If they think they're going to make money out of it, then they certainly aren't going to get rid of it.
From a player's point of view, I don't think it should be happening. I think they need to rest. I think that we need to be careful about the quality of the product. But from a fan's point of view and a broadcasting point of view, I'm delighted. I don't like it when there's a summer without football.
And I think Bayern winning 10-0, albeit against a team of part-timers, is again quite a damning look on the tournament.
I'm sorry, there are some teams that shouldn't be in there, and I think that needs to be revised if the tournament is to be taken seriously.
It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, Benfica and Chelsea legend Scott Minto and Alex Crook. The summer has officially begun, and Crookie and I welcomed the dark period. It's not going to be that dark, but it is darker than usual, by singing Never Forget by Take That on stage at 4 a.m. in Manchester's Hilton Hotel with an array of minor celebrities and Leonardo Bonucci. That's how we did it on Sunday. Crookie, have you recovered?
Only just. Yesterday was a painful one, but yeah, what a night. I couldn't believe it, because we've both been to these after parties before, and usually none of the celebs turn up. It was packed, wasn't it, with royalty, really. Manchester United royalty, football royalty. All the YouTubers were there, which is what got my kids most excited. But I think David Trezeguet was still going strong in the hotel bar when we left, and it was daylight at 4 o'clock in the morning. What a man.
Excellent. That's what you want. See, this is post-Soccer Aid. So we were in Manchester for Soccer Aid, and then we sort of, hobnobbed it to the after party. And yeah. I mean, I say that, we all had a good time, but Crook basically went round with his phone taking pictures of everyone. One of those really annoying people that, like when you go to these things, you got to try and play it a little bit cool, Trig. But he didn't. He really didn't. And then do you know what he said? This is the best thing. He got a little bit of stick online because he posted a picture of him and Harry Maguire. And obviously he's been giving Harry Maguire quite a bit of stick over the last few years, Scott, as you'll know. He the punters, they were like, well, hold on a second, you've been slagging him off for the last 12 to 18 months, and now you're posing for a picture with him. And which his response was, it's for the kids, actually. It's for the kids. It's for my kids. It's for my kids. Yeah, that's why you put it on social media, Crook.
Well, I tell you what, Sam, first of all, when you introduced us, I'm surprised you didn't introduce him as Soccer Aid legend. I'm sure he was going around. He even, what was the night, Crookie, where that's Wayne Rooney. That's Wayne Rooney. I want a photo.
Oh, it was the Hall of Fame night.
And you Hall of Fame, and you wouldn't go up to him, so I went, go on then, I'll do it. Wayne, how you doing? Do you mind having a photo with this big lump here? And he did, to be fair. And actually, I was listening to talkSPORT the next day, and his opening gambit was, I'm really sorry if I don't sound too good, but we had a really good night at Soccer Aid. I thought, I've got to look at this. So I put watch live, and he's got the curtains kind of trying to be closed, but they're not closed. And you can see him all disheveled. It was so funny. So funny.
Yeah, the thing is that, he makes out like he's the cool kid, but he's actually just like a big kid, really.
That's very true.
Scott, everything else okay with you? You've been busy, haven't you?
Yeah, been pretty busy. I had a few days in Portugal golfing, and intake of some alcohol, which was good. Let's just say my day one of golf was much better than my day two of golf. And then covering the Club World Cup, which PSG I thought was superb. Did Chelsea. And I'm off to Ascot today, so I've got a good day ahead.
Okay, busy sporting summer. And we'll talk a little bit about the Club World Cup. We've got some interesting transfer stories for you as well. And this will get you on the edge of your seat. We've got some law changes to discuss and the impact of them. That's coming up. But let's get into it now, because the Club World Cup is underway. Chelsea are up and running after beating LAFC in front of about 15 people in a milkman. Well, before we get into Chelsea, should we just have a quick word on what it's been like overall, the Club World Cup? Because, Scott, you've covered it, haven't you? You've done, I think we're on match day 3 now, and you've been working for both the previous 2 match days. How have you found the quality of the football and the sort of pace of the game? Because the pitches concern me a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think in terms of the fans, even the PSG Atletico game, it started off not being lots of people. By the end, it was a lot. But that was a Sunday midday kickoff in the States. This Chelsea game was a 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. And, I mean, what do we expect? I mean, it should have been kids for £1 or adults for £5 or something like that, just to try and fill the stadium. But in terms of the football, it is pretty much what we thought it would be. Some good teams, some really not so good teams. And I'm sorry, there are some teams that shouldn't be in there. And I think that needs to be revised if the tournament is to be taken seriously. But the 2 games I've worked on, obviously I always enjoy working on Chelsea, just because it's Chelsea. And I thought PSG were absolutely superb, especially considering the heat and humidity picked up where they left off in the Champions League final.
Chelsea's Club World Cup campaign up and running with a 2-0 victory over LAFC. The headlines are Liam Delap coming on and making his debut and playing well. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss the attendance as well and the pace of the game, the overall sort of feel of the game, because it did feel a little bit like a pre-season friendly in effect, and Enzo Maresca sort of judged that afterwards. There's some other things to discuss too, like walk-on music and people coming out individually, which we will discuss because Romeo Lavia really likes it. I think he's the only one, but Romeo Lavia really likes it. But you mentioned the attendance, right? 61,000 in Miami for the opening game, which was pretty much full. That's 93% full. 81% full when Bayern blitzed Auckland, and that was a really one-sided game. There were 80,000 eventually in Pasadena for PSG against Atletico. And you talked about them coming in late. They came in a little bit late, but if you watch that towards the end and you look at the pan round, there's 80,000 people there. It's absolutely jam-packed. It was only a third full, actually, at Chelsea versus LAFC in Atlanta, but Scott's given you some reasons for that. Botafogo against Seattle was half full. They were 3/4 full in Miami for Boca against Benfica late last night, which was a very, very good game. But if you zoom out and come away from it, let's think. It's Monday afternoon in the middle of the summer in Atlanta, where LA are not popular, right? You're not going to get loads of LA fans going from one side of the country to basically about 4 hours in from the East Coast, if you're driving. And most of those 26,000 that were there were Chelsea, really. Let's be completely honest, drawing people in from around the state. So, look, I think there's going to be matches like this where you have empty seats because it's a massive tournament. It's a new tournament. Tickets have been expensive. Well, I had a mate there yesterday who said that there were tickets going for $400 in that inside ring, which was around the stadium. So I do think that the attendance stuff has probably been overblown, although yesterday didn't look good for the overall sort of good of the tournament. But the game itself, I thought, was the problem here, Scott. And Crook, I don't know how much of you saw. I'm sure you watched the highlights this morning. But the sort of the slow pace of it was that frustrated you, I think, because you wanted to see more energy, but very difficult in that sort of level of humidity and heat.
Yeah, and I think that was always going to be a problem with the timing of this tournament, but it's something that we're going to have to get used to because we've got the actual World Cup itself next summer. I think in some ways Gianni Infantino deserved the image of that 3/4 empty stadium because this has been, in my opinion, simply a cash cow for FIFA. I think he misjudged the public appetite for it with the ticket prices, with the fact they pretty much had to give away the TV rights in the end. And I think Bayern winning 10-0, albeit against a team of part-timers, is again quite a damning look on the tournament. I think I'm right in saying there's never been a 10-0 victory in the actual World Cup. So to get one in the second game of the Club World Cup, I think is also going to have a negative impact. You mentioned the number of Chelsea fans in the ground on Monday. How many of those have travelled over from England? How many Manchester City fans have travelled over for this tournament? Because that's the real barometer, isn't it? When it comes to next summer, every England seat will be taken pretty much by fans who've travelled over from these shores. I think what this is at the moment is a tournament for tourists.
Yeah, and that has merit as well because there are sort of supporters that live in different places of the world who would love to go and see their club play football, and that is okay too. But I think we do get a little bit sort of myopic about it, and then we look at it from a very English perspective. I think if you watched the Palmeiras fans in Times Square, or you looked at the Boca Juniors fans in their end last night, you'd think, wow, this is going really well. I mean, the South American teams are absolutely loving it. Do you know why? Because it's quite close in proximity to them. They don't get to see this very often. So this is a good opportunity for them. So, I think we have to be a little bit careful about how we look at it. And Crook, he doesn't mind a bit of crooky spin. They didn't really give away the TV rights. They paid $1 billion for them at DAZN. But apart from that, almost a giveaway. Depends. Obviously, he's made it so far now that £1 billion is basically lapping.
How much have Channel 5 paid for the rights in this country then?
Well, the global rights have gone to DAZN for £1 billion, so they didn't give those away. I mean, I don't know how much Channel 5 paid for it, but they certainly weren't free, because ITV asked for a freebie first of all, and that wasn't granted. So Channel 5 had to pay something, but yes, they haven't broken the bank. Go for it, Scott.
The only thing I'd say about the rights, and I don't know if I'm doing 2 and 2 makes 5 here, is DAZN have got the rights. Saudi are kind of taken over DAZN. Saudi want the World Cup, and FIFA want this to happen. So am I being a bit?
You might have cracked the case.
So I know exactly where Crookie's coming from. They struggled. The Saudi said, "I'll take over, make sure we have the World Cup."
Wasn't exactly a bidding war, was it, for those
exactly
rights?
From a player's point of view? But I'm with you here, Sam. But so let me say this. From a player's point of view, I don't think it should be happening. I think they need to rest. I think that we need to be careful about the quality of the product. We want to be seeing, and I said this yesterday on commentary, people that even players like myself and non-players can only dream of doing. That's what we want to see. The best players in the world playing football that we all wanted to play ourselves. And if they're playing too much, that's just not going to happen. So we do need to be careful about that. But from a fan's point of view and a broadcasting point of view, I'm delighted. I don't like it when there's a summer without football. We just need to be careful. Now, the question also on whether certain teams should be there. I mean, Auckland City, with the greatest of respect, are ranked 5,074th in the world in clubs. That's over 2,500 places below York City. They're not even the best team in Auckland, because Auckland, the other Auckland side, play in the A-League. So we've just got to be careful not to make it a bit of a shambles. I understand what he's doing, but this is all about Infantino. This is all about FIFA going up against UEFA. And what he doesn't want, and the only thing he can't control, is that if 6 of the 8 quarterfinalists are European teams and all 4 are semi-finalists as well, it becomes a UEFA Champions League competition.
Yeah, and I think tongue in cheek, obviously, you have to try and give it a little bit of a different perspective, because I think it's very easy just to say it's total rubbish. Let's not bother. It's all an Infantino vanity project. And some of that is definitely true. But I do also think that there is another sort of vantage point, which is looking at it from the South American point of view, looking at it from the teams that don't get to do this very often, and looking at it from an organisational point of view as to where we can improve it. Because let me be honest, if they think they're going to make money out of it, then they certainly aren't going to get rid of it. And if you are being honest about some of the other English teams that are upset that they're not in it, they've been lobbying for it to become a 48-team tournament so they get in next time. And I'm talking about Arsenal and Liverpool. On the match itself, Delap, I thought he did really well when he came on, and he created the goal for Enzo Fernandez. He was powerful, he was strong, he showed pace, quick turn of foot. I thought actually really impressed, and I thought that's going to be key for Enzo Maresca going forward, because that's a focal point that Chelsea didn't have before.
Look, I mean, I agree. I actually thought Nicholas Jackson played well as well, but he's sort of in stops and starts. He can go out the game and not see him much for sort of 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. But his assist for the goal, I thought, was brilliant. Brilliant play. It was almost like Harry Kane at his best, the way he dropped deep, manipulated space, and a great ball in behind for Pedro Neto. But I agree, Liam Delap, I never judge someone on their first game, and obviously it's got to be done consistently. But he's got that mentality. And I said as he come on, I said, He may well get a goal, but he'll definitely make an impact, and I'm sure he'll push someone over. And he literally did that within 30 seconds. He pushed someone over. Chelsea fans will love watching him because he is all action. His movement on the goal where for 2-0, he went long to come short, long to come short, long to come short, where the defender didn't even know what time zone he was in. Maybe he was in South America at that particular time. And then he made the channel run, a delicious ball in for Enzo Fernandez. I just thought, apart from scoring, and there's not much more he could have done. It was a brilliant cameo role, and it's going to be fascinating to see whether he starts against Flamengo.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent, and I thought he looked a little bit like Kerry Dixon back in the day. The blonde hair, the big broad shoulders, the ability to hold the ball up to bully defenders and then come up with that assist, which was really good cross actually for Enzo Fernandez, who finished it brilliantly. What do we make of the walk on? Players coming on one by one, which is really time consuming. It takes ages. And, from a commentary point of view, you have to waffle for a very long time to get through it, Scott, which was, is annoying. But also the other problem is that if there's no one in the stadium at that time, which there wasn't on this occasion, it looks a little bit soulless, doesn't it? I mean, Romeo Lavia says, I really liked it. We should bring it into the Premier League. And I was immediately like, no, let's not do that.
So they're going to do this for every game, are they, these individual walkouts?
Yeah, they have done so far, yeah.
Yeah. Waste of time. All you're going to do, if you brought that into the English game, fans would just take longer having a pint in the concourses before they took their seat in the stands. You would be doing it in front of half-empty stadiums.
They need to start earlier, Sam. Both the games I've worked on, the kickoff's been late.
Yeah. I mean, I watched the games last night, and it was like, come on, let's get on with it. Get on with it. That was the feeling that you had.
The PSG game was kicked off after 5 minutes past 8. English time. It was, not for me. I've got to be honest.
I would say that would really, on any other circumstance, trouble the broadcasters. But seeing as there's only one and they're in complete control of it, it doesn't really matter. Look, I mean, over the course of the tournament, there's been some great goals so far. I thought the defending from Atletico Madrid, I mean, there was a bit of a takedown of how great PSG were and how well they moved the ball. And all of that is true. But the defending from Atletico Madrid, I thought, was appalling, Scott.
It was, Sam. But honestly, PSG, I was fascinated to see whether they could sort of pick up where they left off. Obviously, they've gone off to the international breaks. Luis Enrique had a 10-day holiday. They had just 4 training sessions. It was hot. It was humid. And yet that first half, they just took everything out of Atletico. And the second half, actually, Atletico, to be fair, came into the game a little bit more and had a goal disallowed, which I don't think should have been disallowed. I think VAR should have got involved personally. But you're right, it wasn't great defending. But PSG, I'm telling you now, if they play like that, they're winning this competition. And any team that beats them wins this competition.
Okay, and there was a sending off in that game, by the way. Clement Longley was sent off. And that sort of falls into our new rules chat, which we're going to do in the next few minutes. That's it for the Club World Cup so far. We haven't seen Manchester City yet. They play on Wednesday. So next week, we'll sort of reflect on how they've got on. They've got a lot of new signings, so we'll get a deep dive into that and how that's sort of going to pan out over the course of next week. So stay with us for that. We've got loads of domestic stories, transfer stories to get into, a little look at Tottenham Hotspur and where they can improve under Thomas Frank, and what's happening with Arsenal as well, because they ain't signed anyone yet, and everyone else has been straight off the bat. The transfer guru is here when he's not taking pictures with B-list celebrities at late-night parties, some of whom he didn't even know, by the way. He is scouring the earth for transfer stories, and he is in the transfer basement with us for the next few minutes. What's happening at Arsenal? Why have they not signed anyone? Are they going to sign a striker? Or is this true that Mikel Arteta is planning to start the season with Kai Havertz as his number 9?
I think that's a possibility. Obviously, they're scouring the market. I think Andrea Berta, the new sporting director, has been juggling both Gyökeres and Benjamin Šeško as well, trying to get value for money, really, which is thin on the ground when it comes to that number 9 position. Both of those are going to cost princely sums. Obviously, we touched on it in the last podcast, the row that's been going on between Gyökeres and Sporting over one of these so-called gentlemen's agreements, allowing him to leave for £60 million. Sporting have decided they want a bit more than that, probably because they've looked at how much Leipzig are demanding for Cashcow, and even more so, Frank, for Ugo Ekitike, €100 million transfer bounty on his head. We understand that Manchester United have shown a bit of interest in him, but I'd be amazed if they paid that. So I tell you what, it's the time to be a number 9, and that Liam Delap deal is looking more like a bargain as it goes on. I do wonder why Arsenal didn't try for him, because as we've mentioned again in previous pods, he's perfectly suited for the Premier League. He can handle the robustness, the physicality. He's certainly not going to die wanting, is he? He's going to put himself around. He's not going to go hiding. And I think clubs are finding it difficult. Liverpool in the market for number 9 as well. They would love Alexander Isak, but having spent a lot of money on Florian Wirtz, it's difficult to see that one happening now. So I think Arsenal fans are getting a bit frustrated by the delays, but it does ultimately come down to finances.
Scott, can they start the season without a main striker again? Is that something that's going to come back to haunt them eventually? I mean, look, you could argue that it came back to haunt them last season, but is this now almost an intolerable position that they would start the season without an out-and-out number 9?
Yes, absolutely they have to. It's the missing piece of the jigsaw, and it's been that for a few seasons now. We've all been saying that. You know, how many times have I sort of said, you know, when I the difference of that striker, of turning the draws into wins, and Arsenal drew far too many games. You know, I played against Michael Owen at Anfield, and we played really well as a team, and we were on the bus on the way home thinking, we lost 2-0. Michael Owen had 5 touches, and 2 touches put the ball in the back of the net. And we're like, what happened there? Honestly, it just makes such a difference when you've got that top striker. And the fact that it's been a few seasons now, they cannot afford to not have a striker. And if you remember last season, when everybody, or a lot of people, including myself, were tipping Arsenal, and I still feel if they get the recruitment right that Arsenal could do it, they kind of fell away in the early part of the season because of discipline and going down to 10 men, but also because they didn't have that striker to turn the draws into wins. So it's absolutely imperative they do that. But we mustn't forget, we're still only mid-June at the moment. There's still plenty of time to get someone in. In an ideal situation, if you ask any striker, any footballer, they want to go in at the start of pre-season so they can bed in and understand not just the manager's tactics, but get to know the lads both on and off the pitch as well. But I still think there's time to do it. But no, they cannot afford to not have a striker in place by the start of the season.
They scored 17 fewer goals than Liverpool last season. They scored fewer goals than Manchester City. They scored only 1 more goal than Newcastle United, who finished in 5th position. That, I think, is a sad indictment. In fact, they only scored 3 more goals than Brentford, whose star player, one of their star players, Brian Mbeumo, is the subject of a bit of a tug of war between Manchester United and Spurs, who have his former manager in Thomas Frank now in charge. What's the latest with this, Crook? Because Manchester United really are trying to bolster their attack.
They are, and he is the priority at this moment in time, probably ahead at the moment of any number 9 they're looking at. Our information at talkSPORT is that Manchester United is still the club that Mbeumo wants to join. Obviously, you can understand the Tottenham interest, and I think it is genuine to say that Thomas Frank would like to take him with him across London. And it might come down to which club is willing to pay the most money in terms of transfer fee to Brentford, because I think they'd love a bidding war. Manchester United, I'm told, are keen to avoid that scenario. And obviously the wages as well. We've already reported this on talkSPORT. 250 grand a week is what Mbeumo is asking for. That would smash Tottenham's pay structure. Manchester United already have players earning that calibre of money. I think Mason Mount was given similar when he came in a year ago, or a couple of years ago now. So let's see. I still think he's more likely to end up at Manchester United than Spurs. But what United aren't going to do is put in bid after bid and have it rejected. I think they're still in dialogue with Brentford before that second offer goes in, and they're determined that they will only bid again once they've basically got the green light on their proposal from Brentford.
Well, Manchester United notoriously not very good at negotiations. So this is a good test, actually, of the new regime, Scott.
I think it's a great test. I mean, first of all, I don't understand why they're not going for a striker. You know, I just said what I said about Arsenal. And we know Rasmus Højlund. I do think there's a player there, but it's just too much for him. Talked about that you need an experience playing for the biggest club in the country, one of the very biggest in the world, how heavy that shirt weighs. They've already got Cunha in. They've got Bruno Fernandes. Brian Mbeumo, I think, would be a very good signing. Don't get me wrong. I really do. I think he's got the right attitude, a better attitude than Cunha's. But they need a striker. So I don't get it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, even in terms of the wages, I know there's players there on a lot of money. But again, this is not just in terms of the transfer fee, but in terms of making sure that the wages aren't silly again. And if things don't work out, you can get rid of that particular player. And whatever you say about the Chelsea hierarchy, they've been very clever with the wages on a yearly basis, despite, with it being long contracts. So fascinating. Again, we'll see whether they get their pants pulled down or not.
Yep, that has happened before. Let's talk about Florian Wirtz, because the white smoke has not yet quite emerged from Anfield.
No, he's been on his holidays. When we broke the news last Friday that this British record fee had been agreed, we said a medical would take place this week. I think it's going to be towards the back end of the week, but it's really just procedure now. He's already agreed personal terms on a long contract, and he will become the most expensive player in English football history. So fascinated to see how he adapts and acclimatises from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. They've got Jeremy Frimpong, his teammate, so that will obviously help with that adaptation period. Milos Kerkez, we're expecting next cab off the rank, and then they're still looking for another forward as well, Liverpool. So, not done much in the first couple of transfer windows under the new regime. They're certainly going big this summer, and I really think that's looking pretty ominous for the rest of the Premier League. As we sit here on June the 17th, I'd make Liverpool quite clear favourites to retain the title.
Andy Robertson's been linked with a move away, though, hasn't he? I mean, some sort of suggesting that he may end up across town from Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, I'm sure Scott's got a strong opinion on how he would have fit in Spain, playing under Simeone. I see it as a perfect fit, actually, at this stage of his career. And I think we will see players leave Liverpool, because as much as they're going big in the window, we know that FSG are going to want to recoup some money as well. I'd be surprised if Darwin Núñez is still there come the end of the transfer window. Harvey Elliott is a player who's got interest from the Premier League and big clubs in Europe. And obviously with Wirtz coming in, he's going to slip further down the pecking order. They're not actively looking to sell Robertson, but obviously with Kerkez coming in, he's not going to be the first choice left back. And I think if they get a suitable offer, they're willing to let him go. And I think he's quite interested in this move.
Let's talk a bit about Tottenham, because Tottenham Hotspur have got a new manager in Thomas Frank. They are going to get some new players in inverted commas. I say that because Manor Solomon, who did really well in the Championship at Leeds United, is going to be part of their squad next year, we think. They've signed Matthijs Tel. Crook, is that right? They've picked him up now, or their obligation to buy has kicked in as a result of sort of surviving last year, just about?
I think it was an option that they've triggered, 35 million euros. And I'm a bit split on this. I'm not sure how big an impact Matthijs Tel actually made for Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, look, he didn't make a crucial impact. I think he only scored a couple of times since he arrived. I think he scored 3 times in, a collection of less than 15 appearances. He is only 20 years of age. He was 19 when he joined. And he's obviously got supreme talent. But bearing in mind he's playing for Bayern Munich at 19, he's now playing for Tottenham at 20, just over 20. He was 20 in April. I think they obviously looking at him, Scott, and thinking high ceiling.
It's such a Daniel Levy signing, isn't it? Buying young, probably the wages aren't too much. He's got him on a long-term contract. I think is it a 6-year deal that I saw. So, it's such a Levy signing. And look, the potential's there, but potential, again, it's how many clubs are just going for potential at the moment when they've now stepped into that realm of Premier League and Champions League. And we know how far away they were basically the worst team in the Premier League. I'm sorry. The 3 were always going to go down that went down, and they were the worst of the rest. So it's such a massive jump, not just in terms of the Premier League itself, but the combination of Premier League and Champions League. And if they're wanting to do Champions League every season and not going to win that European competition, they need to be finishing in the top 4 or 5. So, yeah, it's a Levy signing. We'll have to wait and see how many more of those they make. But they need experienced players as well, good players with a little bit of high wages.
I mean, they've got quite a big squad in terms of they've got a lot of players now, especially the ones that come back from injury, because they did acquire a couple of extra in the January transfer window in Danso and Tel. Maddison will come back from injury eventually. You've got Archie Gray, who's another year older and he's been playing in the European Championships for England in the under-21s, and he's obviously developed even further. You've got Brennan Johnson, who's another year older. Kulusevski will be back to full fitness. Son is still around at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen there, but he's still around at the moment. You've got Solanke. You've got Mikey Moore, who will be 18 next year, who can make an impact at times. But is it a squad that's good enough to be able to balance the rigours of all of these competitions? And I think Thomas Frank has got a bit of a job on his hands, not only making sure that he's got the core of a team that can compete in the Premier League, but he's got a squad that can balance both competitions. And he's going to need some level of investment, I think, Crook. How much is he going to have to play with? Because clearly he needs more, he needs better players, I think. That's the issue.
Yeah, they were trying to sign Angel Gomez on a free transfer, which again would have been classic Daniel Levy to pick up a player of that calibre for free. But obviously he's decided to join Marseille instead. Just struck me as you were talking there, actually, Thomas Frank becoming the new manager is good news for Archie Gray, isn't it? He played a lot of games last season anyway, but if you remember, he was in the door at Brentford when Frank was manager there last summer before Tottenham came in. So you'd expect him to play a big part. A lot of the players you mentioned there are obviously youngsters, relatively inexperienced. I think that's what this Tottenham squad is lacking, particularly when it comes to Champions League, that European know-how. That's why they're so desperate to keep Christian Romero out of the clutches of Atletico Madrid, because he's going to be a big player, obviously a big leader in that dressing room. Keep an eye on the goalkeeping situation, because it was mentioned to me yesterday that Vicario is a possible target for Milan if Mike Mignon does leave the football club. And that wouldn't shock me, because I've always got the impression that maybe Spurs feel he's not quite the complete number one yet, Vicario. Maybe they could do with a better goalkeeper.
Well, they signed another goalkeeper, didn't they, in January, and hardly played him. He played about 4 games. It was excellent. He basically was excellent at being a Tottenham Hotspur goalkeeper. He was like the Harlem Globetrotters. He was taking risks with the ball. He was controlling it, flicking it up, all that kind of stuff, which is great. It was entertaining. I mean, okay. I'm not sure that's the primary role of a goalie, but anyway, he certainly was part of it. He came in from the Czech Republic during the winter transfer window, but we haven't seen much of him since. They've obviously still got Forster on board at the moment, but I think he's probably going to end up moving on. But we'll see what happens with the goalkeeping situation. I wouldn't be surprised either, because I don't think that Vicario is... I thought he had a brilliant start to his Tottenham career, but he never really kicked on from there. He made a lot of saves in the first 6 months of his Tottenham time, but I don't think he ever really then went to the next level, which I think they were hoping him to do. And what about the promoted sides? Because we've got Burnley coming back. They've obviously had recent experience in the Premier League. Sunderland, who have lost players, actually, they've got to sign a few, haven't they, in order to be able to be competitive. Kieran Maguire was saying on talkSPORT this week that maybe £100 million of investment might not be enough to save either of them.
No, I mean, Burnley have lost CJ Egan-Riley. Again, there's a bit of a tug of war for him over in France. We thought he was going to go to Strasbourg, part of the Chelsea group. He's ended up again at Marseille, who are looking like they're going to build a team that can be quite competitive in the Champions League next season. And Josh Brownhill, their captain, is out of contract. I might get an update on him at some point over the next couple of days, but last I was told he wasn't going to sign a new deal at Burnley. He's got some big offers from elsewhere. They would be 2 crucial players that to their success last season that are no longer there. And obviously James Trafford, big target for Newcastle, not the only Premier League club looking at him. Burnley put a big bounty on his head, so maybe he might stay, but that's a cause for concern. And then you look at Sunderland, the guy who scored the winner in the playoff final, Tommy Watson, had already agreed to move to Brighton. That was rubber stamped. So he's not there anymore. Joe Bellingham has decided to follow in his brother's footsteps and go to Dortmund. You do wonder where their points are coming from. And it seems a bit unfair when they're still basking in Wembley glory, but I'm not sure they're going to be much more competitive, Sunderland, than Southampton next season. Leeds are slightly different, because I think the 49ers will spend money, and you look at the players that they're being linked with. Jake Biol, I think that's how I'm pronouncing it, a centre-back at Udinese. I know that Newcastle have also shown some interest in. That's going to happen. I think they'll bring in a new number 9. Because they didn't really have much of a backup option to Pirot last season. So I think of all the teams coming up, that they'll give the best fist of it. But then you look at the teams who finished just above the relegation places last season. I don't think Spurs and United are going to be that bad again. Everton won't go down under David Moyes. You'd expect West Ham to be better under Graham Potter. So who are these teams realistically going to go past? I know Bournemouth fans are a bit anxious because like, their big players are being prized away, but they'll bring replacements in. Wolves maybe, losing Cunha, losing Ain't Nori, losing Semedo. I think that's a big job for Vitor Pereira. There's been big changes at board level as well that we've reported on. So they could be vulnerable, but they're going to be right down there, aren't they? All three teams who've come up.
Ominous. But when they do come back up into the Premier League next season, we are going to have to contend with a few tweaks to the laws of the game. I know Crook is very much excited about this section of the podcast. Do you know about the new laws of the game?
Can I go make a coffee?
Well, you listen, you want to be out there commentating. You're always on the football editor's phone. Oh, give me a game, give me a game, give me a game. And if you're going to do those things, Crook, then you've got to be able to understand the laws of the game, because, you know, what you're going to do when a referee sits there, puts his hand in the air and starts going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's that all about? Do you know? Do you?
Sam, let him go off and make his mate David Trezeguet a cup of tea, for goodness sake. I know he's in the other room there.
To be fair, we could get David Trezeguet to make it, but the pace that he showed during Soccer Aid means we might be here for another 45 minutes. Crook, do you know what that means? The 5 fingers, do you know what that means? Do you know what it means?
Is this the time goalkeepers are going to be allowed to take goal kicks?
And what happens if they don't release the ball?
Oh God, this is like a
so let's explain it so you know in the future.
They get a corner, don't they? The opposition get a corner. Am I right?
So it's not about goal kicks for a start. It is about goalkeepers, and it's 8 seconds. So basically, a goalkeeper now, from the moment they have it in control of their hands and everyone sort of left them, so it can't be when people were putting them under pressure, but like when they've got it in their hands or their hand, they're under control. They have 8 seconds at the referee's discretion to release the ball. The first 3 seconds are counted in the referee's head, and then when the hand goes up and they start counting down to 0, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they've got to get rid of the ball. If they don't, then the opposition get a corner. Do we think that is going to improve the speed of play, Scott?
It will improve the speed of play. I don't know if it'll improve necessarily the quality, but it's an interesting experiment. I remember playing when the 6-second rule came out with goalkeepers, and it didn't last
still
very
there.
long. Well, let me tell you, it didn't last very long practically. So we'll see how long this actually lasts for. Does the Premier League need it? I think there's an argument either way there, but I'm not against it. Let's see. I think there's going to be a lot more pressing teams then, if that's the case, and people will push on and try and get the goalkeepers to kick it long. I think there'll be a few goalkeepers that would be quite happy with that. Then they don't have to play like a number 10 as the final man. But yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens. I think it will definitely speed it up.
I saw a bit of analysis actually from some tactical gurus who suggested that they think that the sort of era of playing out from the back is about to shift the other way again, and we'll have more longer balls going forward. So I think that's already started before this law came in. And I don't want it to get sort of blamed for a change of the style of play and Pep Guardiola to get the ump about the fact that now everyone's not playing 7 passes inside their own penalty area before they push it forward. But that it could be a byproduct of that. And again, it's not just about the Premier League, Scott. These laws of the game are for the whole world. So they, it might be that they're trying to improve situations in other territories as well. What about the captain's rule? This is interesting, this one. Only captains can speak to the referee when things go wrong. Basically, the idea is that they are now recognizing the important relationship between a referee and a captain. That's right. It's very romantic. Additional management tool for the referee, so it means that they don't get surrounded by loads of players, and it's sort of the idea of the time wasting and the behavioural charter being adhered to, the focus on protecting the image and reputation of the game, your club and the competition. Now, normal interaction between players and the referee are allowed. That's fine. You can still talk to the referee. It's not like you now can't even say hello without permission. It's not like you're talking to the Queen or the King. But when the referee decides to call the captains over, they are the only ones who are allowed to speak. And Scott had recent experience of this because Clement Longley decided to put his 2 penneth worth in to a referee in the Club World Cup after the referee had called over the captains. And Clement Longley, because he was mouthing off in the background, you get a yellow card. The referee then, after implementing the new rule very, very well, forgot that the actual rule was if you give someone 2 yellow cards, you have to send them off. He eventually remembered, which was good. And he got sent off, didn't he, Scott?
He did. And initially we didn't know why, because it was Jan Oblak who was like giving it all, sort of not happy with the referee, thought there's a foul on him. And then Clement Longley, he got the yellow card, and we're like, well, that's the second yellow. He must have been sort of quite abusive or that. But yeah, he just literally went up to him, said something, wasn't allowed to. I'm actually for this rule, very much so. And I think it should be a way that it will that stop the referees getting abused. And it's only the captains that can abuse the referees. And I think from bringing that down from 5 to 1, I think is brilliant. I don't think it's a good look for the game, for grassroots. And I also just genuinely think that from a professional point of view, it should not be happening anyway. So I'm actually all for this one. Again, let's see how strongly implemented they will be on it, because the referee didn't realise that was a second yellow at the time, and he should be sent off.
Okay, one final little one. This is really boring. If you sort of don't care about this kind of stuff, but I think it's really important for understanding why decisions are made in the Premier League. And this is Premier League specific, so this is a briefing that sort of hasn't quite come out yet, but it will be something that you'll need to know in the Premier League next year. Is the sort of high threshold for penalising fouls. We like contact in the game, Scott. Is that right?
Absolutely.
We like contact. We do. So the idea that not every contact is a foul. Contact and consequence are really important when deciding whether or not there is a foul. The impact on the game. So, for example, you can kick someone accidentally and it doesn't actually make anything happen. So, therefore, it's not a foul. It has to be play on. And I think that's particularly key in sort of penalty decisions inside the penalty area. It's about sort of contextualized decision making. The defender's actions, and then assessing what happened with the attacker's actions, and then trying to work out whether or not that contact really did make a difference to what was going to happen next. And every time you're doing a sort of a decision on whether or not something is a foul or whether it's a penalty or not a penalty, you have to think of 3 things. The contact and the consequence. Was there a clear attempt to deceive? So that could be simulation. You have to bear that in mind. And then also there is another third way, which is do nothing. Step away and just let the game go. Because if there's any doubt over whether or not there should be or should not be a foul, just let it go. And I think the Premier League is quite unique in that's their guidelines to their officials, whereas maybe in some other leagues, they are a little bit whistle happy, which is good because we want to protect our version of football. It's only a little bit different, but our version of football is important, Scott, isn't it?
Brilliant. Again, let's see how implemented it is. And for those who don't like VAR and said, there'll be nothing to talk about, this is perfect. There are going to be lots to talk about. It's still very subjective. It's still, well, no, he should have done this and it was a coincidence. And, absolutely I'm for this one. What I've sort of thought almost in recent years that it's gone about face, that where in the past the European referees give a foul for almost nothing and a yellow card for almost nothing, and we didn't, is almost in the top tournaments, I see foreign referees allowing play to go on. And I would assume that PGMOL has seen that and said, yes, let's do it. Not every contact is a foul and not every foul is a yellow card. So hopefully they keep to that.
Yes. And the speed of the game is really important. Keep things going. That's what we want. That's what we want to see. Crook, what did you have? Did you have peppermint tea or did you have usual PG tips? Did David Trezeguet make it for you?
Peppermint tea, actually, I'm still nursing this cold that's been around for a couple of weeks. A bit of honey and lemon in with a peppermint tea as well.
That's not a cold. It's a hangover.
2 days at Royal Ascot in the next 3 days. What can go wrong?
Yeah, a lot. Scotty, you're going to Royal Ascot as well. Enjoy that. Crookmeister, thank you very much. We'll be back next Monday to have a look back at some of the other World Cup situations, but also we'll be looking at all the transfer news as well. So stick with us for that. There is live football on talkSPORT 2 this week. Manchester City against Wydad Casablanca. We've got the England under-21 game.
What a game.
Stop. Why are you being so down? I'm not being funny. If you were asked to commentate on it, you would have been there straight away. You'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. But it's like when do you remember what was it the other week where he said, I'm not interested in that. And then had to write, it was the Club World Cup. I'm not interested in that. And then someone said to him, could you write us a 900-word article on the Club World Cup? Like, yeah, I'm all over it, mate. No worries.
Well, no, I did include Barcelona in my original write-up and then had to delete, realising they weren't in it.
England under-21 against Germany, England under-21, and that's been a good start to the tournament. I mean, they started well. It wasn't a great second game, but the first game was pretty good. Inter Miami, Porto, and Chelsea Flamengo, all before Friday, live on talkSPORT. Well,
Real Madrid and Al Hilal as well. Sorry, Sam. I'm doing Real Madrid and Al Hilal as well, and after the Man City game, so there's that one to listen to.
Oh, that's on Wednesday, is it?
Yes.
Good. Well, we'll look forward to that. There's lots of games and always available on the great talkSPORT. So thank you very much for your support and joining us. With Crookie and Scott, we'll be back on Monday to look back at all of the action.